Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're discussing a giant from a bygone era. Like a dinosaur, it has colossal heft, power, punch, and a sort of lost primal appeal that put it in a class by itself. This is something that is truly a monster machine from yesteryear, and we're going to go over all of the elements that truly place it in its point of origin, the early 2000s. It is the Portuguese Perpetual Calendar 5021-11, platinum and one of 250 made. You can see and you can purchase this extraordinary IWC Portuguese Perpetual Calendar on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this glorious grayscale Portuguese Perpetual in platinum. Okay, 250 pieces made. Let's talk about the size real quick. 44.5 millimeters across the round of the case as I measure it, not including the crown. It's not as thick as you might suspect. At 15.4 millimeters, it will fit underneath just about any kind of jacket, cuff, dress, or otherwise. And from lug to lug, it's reasonable at 52.4 millimeters with generously downturned lugs. Of course, those of you who may want to get a jump start on accessorizing will want to know that it has a 22 millimeter lug spacing. But when you look at the watch in profile, you can see just how tightly downturned those lugs are, and also how short they are. They barely project beyond the end of the case, which is why, though my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, I do believe it sits comfortably enough that you could easily wear this watch on a wrist as small as 14.5 to 15 centimeters in circumference. The lower end of that scale if your wrist is more oval than round in profile. It is heavy though, and it is an incredibly gratifying kind of heft. Huge and all in platinum. The watch features a matching platinum clasp. I told you that the watch was a throwback. We may as well start from the outside and work our way in. A full platinum clasp. You can see it has the old school International Watch Co. logo blazoned on the inside. The platinum clasp keeping the watch nicely balanced on the wrist. If you prefer to wear your watch loose, having a platinum clasp to act as the keel, so to speak, for your boat will prevent the watch from trying to tip over the edge of your wrist. The strap is a large rectangular scale, lightly bolstered, matte black alligator leather with a monotone stitch, folded edges, and on the underside a supple calfskin. Now, the throwback hit parade continues as the watch has its original fish crown, which you can see at this angle. So it has the proper fish crown. It has the IWC International Watch Co. logo on the inside of the buckle. It has the first generation 18,000 vibration per hour, caliber 5611, the very first perpetual calendar iteration of the caliber 5000. And of course, we have the dial, which gives us a throwback to the first iteration of the Portuguese Perpetual Calendar in layout and detail, starting with the northern and southern hemisphere moon phases. So this watch is a bit of a ride back into the past. Now, the reference debuted in 2003, and in case you have any doubts about just how borderline vintage this watch is becoming, if you look between the lugs, this is another one of the throwback factors, you can actually see that the case has a stamped gild mark from before IWC had faculties to produce its own cases. There's actually a third-party gild stamp. It's that little iron with the number inside, representing the maker's mark of the case's producer. This is a watch that nevertheless has a timeless quality to it because at the end of the day, it's a Portuguese, and it has the classic lines of the Portuguese, which has essentially been a set template since 1939. Beautiful, albeit minimalist and fully integrated flowing lugs and profile, an oversized case and dial, the better to hold a pocket watch caliber, and the 50,000 series is effectively an automatic pocket watch caliber in its architecture and its size. And then you have a dial that is simplicity itself, with a dot or dimple style minutes track outboard, Arabic numerals applied, and leaf or foist style hands. You've got it all. So this watch, simultaneously a Portuguese, a bit of a time capsule from its era, the early 2000s, and a formidable complication with a 7-day power reserve, a moon phase, and a fully coordinated, mechanically programmed perpetual calendar. Now you can see right now, the watch understands what day it is, but it's a little bit behind the times. So let's talk about how you adjust this perpetual calendar. It is fully coordinated. It is the Kurt Claus system. I'm going to pull the crown out, make sure we're solidly out of the danger zone for setting the crown, or setting the watch and the calendar. So I pull the crown out to its intermediate detent, and then As I adjust from March to April, you see how everything moves in sync? Everything from the moon phase to the day, the date, the month, even the year, the decade. All are mechanically programmed, so I can't accidentally create an imaginary day, date, month, moon, year combination. If you can adjust a Rolex Datejust with 3 hands and a quick-set date, you can adjust this perpetual calendar without having to reference a moon phase, without having to deal with pusher adjusters, without having to run to find the little adjuster tool or risk your talent with a pen tip, without creating ugly apertures on the flank of the case that spoil its lines, or compromise positions that might admit water to the case. One single point of adjustment, all mechanically programmed. That's the system developed by IWC complication savant Kurt Claus, master watchmaker, first in 1985. It eventually found its way to the entire IWC model line, everything from Ingenieur to Portuguese, and again in 2003, this first generation 5021 Portuguese Perpetual Calendar. What do you have? Well, you do have that double moon phase. You do have constant seconds, which you can see ticking away at 9 o'clock, concentric scales for constant seconds and the day. You can see there's a radial display for the month at 6. You have the year, the decade, the century, and the millennium, all on display. You have concentric scales for the radial date outboard, and then inboard the 7-day power reserve. You can wind the watch manually, and it is a pleasure to wind. It has a nice smooth and refined click action to it. And the watch does feature, if you look at the constant seconds, hacking or stop seconds, so you can halt the seconds hand, and though the watch can trace spans as large as a millennium, nevertheless you can set it to the second. You'll also note that the enormous balance wheel halts when you hack the watch. Now, the caseback. Let's talk about the caseback. The caseback shows you the caliber 5611. This was from roughly 2003 to 2005, the first generation caliber. There would ultimately be 3 generations of caliber used on this model before it was phased out towards the end of the 2000s. Now, the balance, again, first generation, beats at 18,000 vibration per hour. The latest versions of this movement in the year 2018 beat at 28.8. So this is a charming and old school beat rate derived directly from IWC's prior experience with pocket watches. Now, it also features the hacking seconds, so you can stop the balance and set the watch. It also features an overcoil hairspring. So handmade, the overcoil gives the watch resistance to gravitationally induced or positionally induced timing deviation, so the watch can be adjusted in multiple positions with respect to gravity and keep good time. 7-day power reserve, or 168 hours. It is a bidirectional winding system called the Peloton winding system, so named because it was invented in approximately 1950 by IWC watchmaker Albert Peloton. Now, it uses a bidirectional winding system, so it winds in both directions, in conjunction with 2 pawls and a pawl wheel. Very efficient. It is a superb system in that it also combines efficiency with shock resistance, being more durable than other automatic systems. It's a remarkable construction, this movement, as it's over 37 millimeters in diameter. Therefore, the movement itself is slightly larger than a fully cased up Rolex Datejust 36 millimeter watch. This is an extraordinarily large automatic that I believe remains to this day the world's largest automatic caliber, so still a record holder. And you can see inset the IWC solid gold medallion within a skeletonized winding mass. The watch has 3 ATM or 30 meters water resistance, so it's not one that you're going to want to take for splish splash, but with a handsome, cool, quiet, and muted aesthetic. Grayscale, a combination of satin finished platinum and polished, a gorgeous concave bezel that pares down the visual mass, and the timeless proportions and details of the Portuguese. This is an everyday watch, a spectacular everyday watch, but an everyday watch all the same. See it and make it your everyday watch on our website.